Hello, friends again. Welcome all you atoms and molecules to another virtual MOSI. My name is Ian Reed, and today we have two experiments as we prepare to discuss water cycle and clouds. Very, very, very important with our weather week this week. So, probably saying to yourself, what is the water cycle? Now, the water cycle is a process. If you want a big word, we also call it hydrologic cycle, where we get water on, above, under the earth. So notice there are these wonderful words here that actually describe the water cycle. And so we do have an experiment, but we're going to go over these really cool words so that you understand what each of them is. So the first one is evaporation. So evaporation occurs when you have energy, you pour a liquid onto the ground, and then you turn around, you turn back, liquid is gone. What happens? That's when liquid then becomes vaporous, like water vapor, and goes up. So that is evaporation, which you need energy for. All right? And in Florida, because of the sun, it's kind of hot, helps with evaporation. The next is condensation. So condensation is when, remember, we went from a liquid to a gas. All right? For evaporation, condensation is when that gas becomes liquidy. All right? So it becomes a liquid. All right? So we have evaporation and condensation. Then you have one you probably maybe not have heard of, saturation. Now, what is that, Mr. Ian? Look at all these cool, fluffy clouds. All right? All the fluffy clouds right there. All right? So saturation occurs as the vapor is gathering up. So you see how poofy those clouds are? They're gathering up, and it's building up the clouds. So that is saturation. Then once you get so much, and the clouds are extremely saturated, then you get precipitation. And precipitation is any liquid, water, in these different forms. So you can have rain, hail, sleet, snow that comes from the atmosphere, which forms in the atmosphere and comes to the ground. So that's a form of precipitation. All right? And then we have percolation, or they're using a new word, infiltration. I don't like that word. I like percolation. And so percolation is when the water goes to the ground and it actually works its way down to underground water resources. Here in Florida, we have aquifers. All right? And so when you have enough rain, it actually will seep down and help to refill the aquifers. All right? So that is percolation. All right? So for our very first experiment, let's look and see what we have here. So our wonderful crew has allowed me to borrow their light. So we're going to pretend that this light is the sun. All right? Big object, 93 million miles away, provides heat, lights and heats the earth. So here we have liquid in our pan, and we have ice. So to do this at home, you will need your parents' help because you'll need to have some hot water. So you would need 2 pots, ice. All right. Help with the stove. So 1 pot would need to be on the stove. Here I have a hot plate and someone kind of holding up the other pot filled with the ice. So let's look at what we just learned. So this represents, we have water, this represents evaporation. Notice that you have steam. So this is vaporous. Condensation is represented by, see all those tiny droplets there? All right. So that is the condensation. You're getting some precipitation. On top, notice this metal. Now, there's a reason why I use the metal pie pan here because it does energy better. And so notice that the ice is melting, which is causing now our precipitation here. So you can kind of see the droplets. They're starting to drop. Whoop, there's one right there. Now, to get percolation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully remove the pie pan, and we're going to pretend that the paper towel A little bit too much precipitation there. That's called a flood. All right. And so here you see from here, thank you, so Jose. So here you see, if this were the ground, we'd have great percolation because notice it's absorbing the water here. So that's all of the water cycle. Now we have cloud formation. You're probably saying to yourself, well, what causes clouds to form? 2 steps in our water cycle, believe it or not. It's 2 steps. It's condensation and saturation. Because what happens, remember, condensation is what? Condensation is where when the gas is starting to become liquid form, saturation as it spreads out for our clouds. So there's an easier way to show this. What you would need is some more of your warm or hot water here. I have my handy dandy hot pot kettle, one of the greatest inventions ever. I'm going to pour it into this glass container here. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this cup and I'm just going to place it right over it. Notice what you see here. You're seeing from the top kind of like a cloud forming there. And if I take a piece of ice to cool it, let's take 2 pieces of ice. There you go. Starting to cool it, you have something like a cloud inside. And then the longer it goes, eventually it'll get droplets. And so not only will you have kind of like a water cycle there, but also here. And so here you have like a wonderful little cloud formation there. Okay? And so again, this is something you definitely would like to do with your parents' assistance. Maybe you can pour in the water and then direct your parents on how the experiment is done. But this actually explains the water cycle, all the different parts. And remember, without saturation, there can be no precipitation. All right? I like to say that a lot. That's why I taught the kids. So this is the water cycle. If there's any questions, all right, please feel free to email us. Guess what? I'm going to be your friendly neighborhood weatherman on tomorrow when we discuss heat and convection. And it's a really, really cool experiment. I was allowed to bring in a large glass pan from my house. So that's how we will do it tomorrow. And we'll talk about heat and convection and why we get really severe thunderstorms as well. And it's actually related to our experiment on tomorrow. So thank you for tuning in. Again, my name is Ian, and I will say to you, as always, keep discovering.